So, Bryan, I wanted to take a moment to shout out your beautiful Aunt Gwen. Oh my gosh.
Auntie Gwen.
Do you hear what is that? I think it means it's time for
Spirit Pop Paranormal.
Spirit Pop Paranormal, where we get into all of the spooker, dooky happenings in the world that we can find and talk about it. That's what we're going to do right now.
Yes, I love it. So, Crystal.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Honey, yes, I believe in ghosts. I have seen my share of entities, and so I know they are real. Now, what they are, that's a different matter. But yes, to answer your question, I do.
Well, reports of paranormal activity have increased during the pandemic. Have you heard this?
No, but that makes sense.
Well, apparently during the pandemic, more people are seeing and hearing ghostly activity.
Are they drunk? I think most people are drunk. That's probably why. No?
Well, an article that I was reading stated that because we are home more now, as a whole, we are seeing, more ghostly activity. But this article also, and I'm not going to mention the author of the article because I'm going to say something that's not very nice.
Oh, dear. Okay.
But he said that the ghosts are just as frustrated with quarantine as we are because we are home all the time and they cannot properly haunt our houses.
Well, what are they haunting it for? Aren't they haunting it for us?
Well, that's what I thought.
I mean, I think the effects are for our benefits, that we can know that they're there, get scared, and then... Or maybe they want us gone so that they can just use the house like those people in The Others. Nicole Kidman and her children had no idea that they were dead, and they were just knocking around the house, making tea, eating food, but couldn't open the curtains. But the more that we're around...
If we're going to look at The Others for just a moment. And
I
talk,
love that movie.
In terms of, oh my God, when she realized that she was a ghostie and the papers were flying. Oh, that was to me like The Sixth Sense when he realized he was dead. Although I did pick up at the beginning when he was talking to her.
Did you really?
When he was talking to her in the bedroom and she was just moving about, ignoring him, I'm like, that's not someone who is just angry at her husband. That is someone who does not see her husband. And I'm like, that to me is either pure hatred or he's not there. And I'm like,
so that's the Sixth Sense. That's the Sixth Sense.
And but getting back to The Others.
The Others came out around like a little bit after that, a couple years too, something like that. Yeah.
And so, in the movie, they were, like you said, knocking around the house, having tea, living a life. I mean, for a ghost... Are you really making tea and coffee and sitting in a chair and reading a book and having a life? Because when before I was a little more knowledgeable about these things, I just assumed, well, if you're a ghost, you can't hold a book. You can't leave. You know what I mean? It's just like you're ethereal.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm actually not sure about that. Maybe they can't hold a physical book, although I think the stronger the energy and presence of a ghost is, the more they can manipulate physical reality. But I can say through my own out-of-body experiences that when you pop out into the fourth dimension, which is the immediate dimension you pop into as soon as you leave your body, that it is a lot like Earth. There's furniture there. There's stuff there. And I think that when I was out of body and I would try to interact with things in that world, like I would walk right through a wall. Or if I were to pick up something, like for example, if I picked up a book in the astral and I read it, the words would be wonky. Like the words wouldn't make much sense or they'd be moving around. And so but there's a book. So I can see how a disoriented, discarnate spirit might be in this astral dimension that feels a lot like Earth because it looks a lot like Earth and have interactions with the objects in that dimension and get confused, which is what I think was happening in the movie The Others. But it's interesting because they think they're being haunted by the people who move into the house after they die. And they're real human people and they're hearing the humans move around like we would experience a ghost haunting. So it's kind of an interesting concept, and maybe maybe that's what the ghosties in this article are upset about, because they're getting tired of our shenanigans because we never leave the house because we're quarantined. Well, I'm in Texas. You're in Florida. We really haven't been locked down that bad. We've been at the beach. We've been at the rodeo and stuff. Like, it's fine. But maybe I just think it's a silly article. But I think it's kind of but I think what's happening is that people are home. Maybe they're... Can you imagine? People are actually working on their own stuff. Maybe they're processing through their psychology. Maybe they're starting a meditation practice. Maybe they're reading more and just doing things that fill them with different knowledge. And because of that, they're aligning more to what's happening in the world, or they're just more observant because they're home looking out the window all day. So they are more apt to see a fairy in the tree or a ghost in the bush.
Ooh.
That needs a theremin.
Everything needs
We
a
have
theremin.
to talk about the theremin a little bit because I think it's so enchanting. Brian here wants to learn how to play the theremin. And I'm just going to insert some theremin right here so everybody knows what it is. It's that instrument that sounds like a 1950s UFO movie. Super fantastic. Or what was it? Dark Shadows? Did they have the theremin?
Yes, Dark Shadows use some theremin too.
So, and you're just enamored with the idea of learning the theremin. Can you imagine just playing that music? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to stay at home with your dog Claire, and you're just going to play the theremin? Talk about ghosties being attracted to your mysterious music. And I can sing. I mean, we just heard a little bit of that. What if I sang and you played the theremin, and we could call in the ghosties or the angels? I mean, not the bad ghosties. Just
the good ones. The good ones. I was totally about to insert my own audible theremin sound, but I'm not even going to go there because I was trying to do that to you when I was sending you, little audio clips. See, I was listening to theremin in the car, and it's all through Bluetooth. So when I'm leaving Crystal messages, it's also through the Bluetooth. So when I put the recorder on, it cuts out what I'm listening to.
Right.
And so, but I was sending her, well, this is what I'm listening to, and this is what it sounds like, and it was utterly ridiculous.
You are ridiculous, but I think that it's just such a great idea that you would learn how to play the theremin at this age. I mean, 20, that you would want to learn how to play the theremin.
Thank you.
But I think everybody listening and watching supports this, and we're here for it. We're here for it.
Okay. So pretty soon, hopefully, I'm going to be getting. There are cheap ones, but I found the less expensive ones don't sound very
We
good.
need the 1950s flying saucer War of the Worlds theremin.
Well, those are a little bit more expensive.
Well,
so
I mean, if
see.
you're going to do it all the way.
Me. Yeah, and there's no one to teach me how to play it. I will have to learn on my own.
YouTube.
Or by YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah, there's an app for that. No, there isn't.
Is there someone on YouTube right now teaching people how to play the theremin? There's somebody
there
on YouTube
are
right now.
videos where some people are kind of explaining the basic principles of it, and then you just sort of learn yourself. So maybe. We'll see.
Please report back. I know we're all going to be waiting with bated breath to hear about your adventures with the theremin.
All right, so let's move on with our Spirit Pop Paranormal, or SWP. And there was a recent Bigfoot sighting in Illinois, Cass County, Illinois.
BigFeetsies.
Yes. It was Route 78 near Chandlerville. And apparently it didn't last very long, but a gentleman driving his car saw Bigfoot. So basically, he hit the shoulder of the highway. Well, he didn't hit it, but he was driving around, and he said he saw it, and it looked back at him. And he said, quote, "I said to myself out loud," expletive, "Bigfoot, effing Bigfoot." So this guy was just driving along at night and saw the Bigfoot.
Well, he's driving on the shoulder, so he's probably driving drunk. He's probably a DUI. I mean, no? Why is he on the shoulder? That seems chaotic.
He was driving around the corner, and so I think he just saw it on the side. But it was about 10:30 at night. This was back in November. He was heading north, and I'll read you a little bit of his quote. "I saw a large animal jump into the road about 40 yards ahead. When it hit the road, I could see very large legs spread wide in a dead run with large, swinging, hairy arms. The arms switched back and forth close to the ground, and its body was leaning forward. It leaped across the road in 2 jumps. That's what he told the investigators. He said he could see it very clearly, that it was very large, and even though it hunched over a bit horizontally, he said he felt it was close to being wider than his car.
Wow.
And nearly to the top of his windshield. And he said it completely blocked out the lights of the car ahead.
You know, I always, Occam's razor for me, like the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. And so I would think, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, how when somebody is confronted with an evidence of that magnitude that they don't take a picture. And I'm not actually being critical, because I don't know that my first instinct would be like, where's my camera? Like, I'd be like, holy crap, there's Bigfoot. Or
I would be too.
That's an
I
alien.
would just sit there like.
Beyond which, I don't like, it's been reported time and time again that when somebody does try to take a picture of a BigFeetsies or an alien, that the digital stuff doesn't work, or like there's always some kind of a problem, or there's a mess up because there's some kind of interference. Look,
Well,
I mean, go.
Well, I think if they're getting that kind of mechanical, technical interference, then are you seeing an actual creature?
Exactly.
Or are you seeing an interdimensional
You're seeing
being?
this is the question, especially about BigFeetsies, because with Bigfoot, I think there are people who are in the camp of this is a physical creature that exists, emits a smell, looks a certain way. There are attributes of physicality. And then there are other people in the other camp who think, well, no, a Bigfoot is probably a portal being, an interdimensional being that travels here through a wormhole of some kind, and maybe can physicalize to some extent. Or it's interesting because a lot of people smell something really stinky with Bigfoot and other entities, and it usually smells like sulfur, and sulfur is the smell of decay. And so what if when we're smelling sulfur because there's an entity there, it's because they've popped into our physical reality, but they can't stay here long, and their actual physicalness is decaying in the process, and so they're in and then they got to get out. I'm in the camp that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being who can physicalize to some extent. But I mean, I've heard some of these Sasquatch encounters where people are like, no, dude, he was in the tree. He was knocking the tree. I saw him. Physical. So, gosh, what do I know?
A friend of mine claims years ago that she saw a Bigfeetsie at where she was living, and it sort of terrorized the neighborhood a little bit. And I'm like, but I didn't think they really came that inward into the city. Now, there are a lot of woods by where she used to live, but I don't think they were that deep. I don't know, but there very well could be a portal there for all I know. And she said that he was very tall, very skinny, had very long arms, and he was sort of grayish, hairy.
Yeah. Yes.
And she said that he really smelled like sulfur.
Really?
And she said that he was afraid of lightning. It was storming that night, and when lightning would come out, he would run. And she said that he ate vegetables, from the garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's
I don't know.
That's a lot of. I've actually heard similar stories, like this woman who was recounting when she was a child. She looked out of her dining room window, and there standing was a Bigfoot, and he looked a lot like that, like no neck, big head, but very physical, right there. And she wasn't necessarily in the city, but she was kind of rural, but suburby. So I think that there are people who see them. If there are woods, there can be a Bigfoot. I think. It makes sense.
Wait, no neck? No neck?
Yeah. Like,
Big Ed from 90 Day Fiancé?
Yes, Bigfoot. He's
just as hairy.
He's a many-hoony. He's a gnome. He's of the nature elemental kingdom. But I was listening to this one story about this guy who goes hiking, I forget where, I think somewhere in Pennsylvania. And as he's going up the mountain on this trail, he notices that there's a Bigfoot, or there's a creature that's kind of tracking him, but in the valley, kind of parallel to him. And he's fascinated by this, and there's no sign of aggression or anything like that. There's wood knocking happening. And so he kind of waves or does something, and of course I'm paraphrasing, and then continues his trek up. And he makes camp at night, and he can hear them in the trees out on the trail. You look horrified. You can hear them, and he can hear them in the trails.
I'm fascinated.
And he goes into his tent that night, and he starts hearing noises all around him. He also hears people talking, which, by the way, is not uncommon to hear people having conversations, but he's out in the woods by himself. There are no other people around. He's an experienced military person and a hunter and all that. So he's alone, but he can hear people talking, and then he can hear the return of these wood knocks and creatures, and he can hear these heavy footfalls outside of his tent. And then what he says is that he was put under some kind of a mind attack. Like he could feel the presence consciously of a Bigfoot, he thinks, trying to take over him. And he said he was just being hit with massive amounts of fear. And it was all he could do to just stave it off and resist it and not succumb to whatever this Bigfoot was trying to do. You know, people go missing in the woods all the time. And I'm kind of a woo-woo chick, and I'm of the mind that I can see something, who knows, but he said that was terrifying. He was just struck with body and soul fear, and all night he was in his tent for hours just doing some kind of battle, but he never gave in, and ultimately the Bigfeetsie left. And so I do think, just like with people, I'm going crazy, sorry, but I do think, just like with people, you've got some Bigfeetsies that are okay, because there's all kinds of really cool reports, and then you've got some that are malignant, cancerous and villainous Bigfeetsies. I guess maybe they're attracted to you according to your own thing, like what are you putting out into the universe? That's the kind of Bigfoot you attract. I don't know.
Could be. I love it.
But as to this Bigfoot in Illinois, well, I mean, okay.
Maybe it's just Big Ed.
I'm much more likely to believe that it's just Big Ed running around in a suburb outside of, I don't know, Chicago or something. Wherever Chandlerville is, it doesn't sound that exciting, but...
Yeah, it sounds a little rural if you ask me. But then again, a lot of these sightings are in rural, woodsy, areas. So
correct.
Except my friend who claims that he was just in a nice upper class middle neighborhood, hanging out in the backyard eating
wearing
vegetables.
A blazer.
Wearing a blazer.
Handsome.
So I got one more topic for us.
Okay.
On our Spirit Pop Paranormal. Aliens.
Yes.
So
I think Bigfoot is an alien, but I'm sorry I'm interrupting you. Go on.
No, I absolutely agree too. I believe he's some type of extraterrestrial. There was an article in the Daily Mail, UK, and it alleged something very interesting, and I wanted to have this chat with you.
Okay.
Saying that they're claiming that we're not having contact with aliens. Now, I took the gist of it like flying saucers in the air, landing and opening forth and speaking to us like Close Encounters, because the aliens are afraid of just how nasty we are as a race of human beings. And I told you, I shared this with you. I feel like no, because if you are that advanced of a race of extraterrestrials, you are far beyond whatever we could do to you. Now, do I feel like it could be that they just don't want to deal with us because we're all a bunch of dumbasses and they are far more advanced than we are, more open-minded? Perhaps. I feel that's a little bit more plausible than them being afraid of us. I just think that. But I also believe, too, if aliens were truly going to invade this planet and take over like we've seen since the 50s, they would have done it by now. Now, there are people that allege that there are different races of aliens already infiltrated in our government and, military and all this other stuff. And I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are about that. But, what do you think?
I think it's a mistake to just think aliens are one thing. I think if we know anything about humanity, then there are all kinds of ethnicities, nationalities, people of all kinds of personality, and as above, so below. So if it's that way for us on our planet, then it's probably similar out there in the great, vast universe. I think that I personally, sifting through all the accounts of alien contact, I think so much of it is just hogwash, but I think there's enough actual cases that merit further understanding and research, and that strike me as real. So I think that they're here already. And I think that they've been here for a while. I think that, you see these medieval paintings And in the background in the painting, there's like something in the air. It looks like a UFO to me. And they're all throughout, like Renaissance paintings, all kinds of things. I think we've been visited for a while. I think indigenous peoples called these beings star people. I think that what's the reason we're experiencing them as grays, or in the 50s we experienced them as these tall, white beings with white hair and very Nordic looking, is because that's our expectation about what they should look like. I think they shapeshift, and also I think phenomena responds to our energy and our perception of it. So, but to your question, so I think they're already here. I would bet. I mean, I know me, like if there's two groups of people and this group of people are violent and making trouble and roaming the streets and throwing beer bottles out at cars, or this group of people that's going to go to a nice movie and enjoy a cocktail after, I'm hanging out with these people. I'm hanging out with people that are safer, that I like, that I can talk to, and not the other people. So I can see different interdimensional beings being like, no, peace out, Earth, get it together, figure it out. And when you do, then we can collaborate and you can become part of the Galactic Federation. But until then, I think they watch us. Here's the thing. I think everything is connected. And so if we detonate our planet due to nuclear war and man's inherent violence, I think it has a ripple effect on the rest of the galaxy and the consciousnesses therein. And so this is why when the missile system went off in 1984 or whatever year it was in America, was it in New Mexico? Maybe it was in Colorado. The missiles started getting activated for some reason. You can look it up. This is an actual story. The whole system was shut down and flying saucers or craft were seen in the area. So I think they have a hand in dismantling us at the very moment we need it the most, because if we were to start something like a nuclear war, it would have an effect on what they're doing wherever they are. And it's the same dimensionally too. Yeah. Like what we're doing in 3D is affecting beings in 5D. Like it's all connected. So those that don't necessarily want to interact with us are probably still watching what the monkeys down on this planet are doing. That's my guess. What do you think? Yeah, that's what I think.
I kind of agree with you. I do believe that they've been around for a long time. There have been too many things that we can't explain otherwise, that are too similar across, going even, way back to like, caveman times, their cave drawings and their renderings. It seems like, they've been around for a long time. Watching, I don't know. I would assume stepping in periodically to help with certain things, but I feel like if there was one thing that I would want them to do is stop any and all wars, because it's so crazy, like the things that just we do to each other, and I don't know, but that's far more advanced than my brain is now.
And it's also our nature to like look for the escapism, like let's get a rapture. Jesus is going to rapture us so that we don't have to deal with taking responsibility for our own nature and the things that we've done to this planet and to others. Rather, I think what the aliens, if there are aliens, I think what beings are waiting for us to do is to awaken into really a new dimensional consciousness where we don't have to invade Ukraine. You know what I mean? We don't have to do things like that and war against one another, where there's so much money and wealth and prosperity on this planet, but so many people are starving and all the wealth is collected in, just this small group of people. Like when we can get ourselves together, that's incumbent upon us. Aliens aren't going to save us. Yeah. I just don't think they will. If they save us, it's probably because they're saving themselves as well.
Yeah,